I chose to use the picture Sandia, which translates to watermelon, by Carmen Lomas Garza, and I really like this painting or this picture because it used a lot of different patterns, a lot of different elements, colors, and there was just so much going on in it. It was very colorful. I thought that it would be intriguing to a young student, so I chose to focus on second grade for this project. And starting off with language arts, I would ask three aesthetic questions, and it would be looking at the painting, how do you feel? How do you think the characters feel? And how do you think the artist felt when she was making it? And do you think that she would make it the same way if she did it again? After that, I would have the students write a narrative, which follows standard SE2 W5, which is that students should be able to write a narrative and go through the process of revising, editing, and final draft of it. So I would have them write about the different characters that were in the painting and what they thought their personalities were like, what they thought their day was like, and anything else that they wanted to add to it. And the objectives would be that they examined a picture and inferred the thoughts and feelings of the characters. And the assessment would just be the narrative itself. Did they actually write a narrative about the characters, and did they participate when we were talking about the aesthetic questions? For social studies, I would have the students examine the picture and describe what they see. And in the picture, there is 9 people, and they're all eating watermelons on a porch. And I would ask them, would it be hard to pay for 9 people to eat? And part of what they do in social studies for this standard is SS2E3, which is that they understand that money is best used for trade and that it is easier to use money instead of bartering. So I would do this as a small group activity, but I would have half the students be given about $30 and the other half be given like a bag of tools. And they would have to try and get enough money or get food from the teacher to feed a family of 9, to feed the people in the picture. And I would have them try to see which way is easier. Is it easier to use money or is it easier to barter? And at the end, we would come together as a class and talk about the things that were easy, the things that were hard, and which way they thought was best. So the goal would be that they understood that money is easier for buying trade or goods than bartering. The assessment would be that class discussion and me observing and watching how they participated. The objectives would be that they assess the difference between bartering and using money, and that they use reason to decide which way is better. And I chose this because I thought it would be a good activity because it focuses on a little different aspect of social studies where it's focusing on the economy and not just Georgia history, which is what they really focus on. For math, I would ask the students what they see in the drawing and what are the most used colors, what do they think the art story is, and it should do a good job painting it. And I would have them count the different people, how many people were in there, how many animals were in there, and how many slices of watermelon were in there, because there were about 9 people, 11 slices of watermelon, and 3 animals, I think. So it was enough for them to go through the picture and count. So I would then have the students fill out a bar graph. And this follows the standard MGSE2 MD10, where they are supposed to be able to draw a bar graph with up to 4 different categories. The assessment would be the bar graph and then that in-class discussion about the visual art component. And the objectives would be counting different objects and being able to represent that graphically. I chose this because there are so many different things in that picture. You could count the different flowers, you could count boys and girls, you could count all the different colors that you saw in there. There was so much in there that you could count, so I tried to just narrow it down to 3. And for science, I would have the class learn about the life cycle of a watermelon because this follows standard S2L1 that requires the students learn about the life cycle of a living organism. And because there are so many watermelon slices in the painting, I thought this would be a good segue into that. So I would have the students make a flip book that go over the different life cycles, but what would be really cool was if the students could observe a watermelon growing in a class garden or something like that so they could see firsthand and collect data. The objectives would be collecting data and making observations and the assessment would be the flip book. But the visual art component would follow standard VA2 PR1, which is that the student creates artwork based on personal experiences and selected themes. So what I would have them do is I would give them a picture on thick white paper of a slice of watermelon. And I would want them to paint the flesh, the red part of the watermelon, with red watercolor. But the rind, I would want them to make it abstract, kind of like we did with the Bug Ugg project. And they would use different principles and elements of art to make it abstract and to make the rind look unique to themselves. They could then outline it and then use colored pencil to fill it in. But I thought that that would be a fun way to make their own watermelon slice after the whole project is done and see how everybody's is different. And then the assessment would be that the student should be able to describe that different patterns are made using different elements in art. So those are my projects.